What we do here matters, because what we don't do matters even more.
We need to continue to push, and we at ADAO are going to continue to push the Surgeon General of the United States.
As you know, the United States continues to use asbestos, and that indeed is a barrier to others stopping its use.
The most horrific part of this whole story is that it is preventable.
I am not Dr. Richard Lemon, but at this time we'd like to invite Karen Banton to come up with the Bernie Banton Foundation.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful morning. I might just get myself. If you don't mind. We've had such a wonderful time here in Arlington and Washington DC, and it's been really special to meet so many of you and get to know you a little. I haven't been really much of a Facebook person up to now, but I think I need to become one so that I can be able to keep in touch with you all. It's lovely to have my team here, and a special welcome and thank you to Helen from the Australian Embassy, who has come to be with us this morning. My late husband, Bernie Banton, was a passionate fighter for social justice against a corporate giant called James Hardie. He was diagnosed with asbestosis in February 1999, becoming an activist in 2001, and the public face for anti-asbestos campaigning across Australia from early 2004 until his death in November 2007. Legally, we had no leg to stand on. The battle was won solely on moral grounds through a ground well of public support from the union movement, the media, politicians, the then New South Wales state Labor government, specialist plaintiff law firms, and of course those touched by asbestos-related diseases. By the close of 2005, we achieved a legally binding agreement in the order of $4.5 billion over a 40-year period. Following some delay tactics by James Hardie, go figure, you know, it happens, and some posturing by the Australian Taxation Office, eventually in February 2007, James Hardie commenced the first payment to the newly created Asbestos Injury Compensation Fund, based on 35% of the company's cash flow each year, with provision for a sliding scale reduction for good behaviour through their continuing to honour the agreement. Asbestos has forever changed my life, as I'm sure it has for anyone here that has been affected or had a family member being affected. And what a challenging and sobering journey it has been, and in some ways no doubt it will continue to be. One of the defining moments in my life, and perhaps some of you may relate to this, actually happened to me on the 23rd of June 1991. I was 29 years of age, as a wife and a mum of a 1-year-old son. I became widowed when my first husband passed away from a massive heart attack. And this defining moment actually happened on the day before I buried my first husband, and it involved a word of prayer on my knees and an experience I could only describe as sweet surrender. It resulted in a feeling of perfect peace, the peace which passes all understanding, and the comfort of knowing that come what may, the future was going to be okay. I also had a sense that there was a purpose intended for my future, which I did not yet comprehend. The very next day at the wake, after my husband's funeral, I was introduced to a bloke named Banton, who had volunteered his time to set up the tables and help prepare the food. And in the following months, we became friends, and we were married later that year. It was destiny. This is Bernie and I on our wedding day, and my young son Dean, who was 20 months old at that stage. And we learned to expect the strength to transform everything that came our way, making it contribute to the central purpose of our lives, to make a positive difference in the lives of others, especially those touched by asbestos-related disease. There's carefree days early in our marriage, Dean a little bit older. Bernie's exposure was from 1968 to 1974 at James Hardie, working a second job, and the factory actually did the lagging for the pipe work at the power stations. There was no protective equipment or clothing offered until close to the time that Bernie left the factory. And the factory closed down a couple of years after he left. This was one of the recognitions that Bernie received from the Festival of Light awards here, a Good Citizen Award. And you can see that he now has the familiar supplemental oxygen that some of the sufferers end up having to use. He was actually on that oxygen from 2003 onwards, and in October 2003 he suffered double pneumonia, and his lungs looked so bad that 5 out of 6 specialists actually believed that he wouldn't see Christmas that year. And when you consider that he then went on to become the public face from 2004 onwards, it's quite amazing, because he was pretty close to death in that October. And I'll point out that from now on the photos will not necessarily be in chronological order. That's just another photo. That was a reason to smile when we had a win against Hardie's. This was a lady that we visited in hospital at Cogra in the south of Sydney. It was Melbourne Cup Day. If any of you have heard of Melbourne Cup, it's the big race in Australia, the big horsing race, and people tend to wear hats. So we went to visit Benedetta, and she was actually on dialysis following surgery that she'd had for her mesothelioma. And these hospital visits actually became a forerunner for what we call Bernie's Angels. And it's part of what the Bernie Banton Foundation does with home and hospital visitations where practical geographically. And we also hold informal support group gatherings and support for people via telephone, email, Skype and social media, especially to those in regional areas. And my colleagues here are pretty good on the social media with people overseas as well. That's another shot of Bernie. One of his catch cries was ultimately good will always triumph over evil. We are not victims, we are victors. Tragedy into triumph. Death held no sting for Bernie. In his final interview screened as a tribute upon his passing, Bernie remarked that, sure, it will be hard to leave family and friends, but when you know that you're going somewhere far better, where there's no more pain, suffering or tears, it's hard to argue why you would want to stay. After suffering asbestosis since January 1999 and diagnosis of peritoneal mesothelioma in August 2007, Bernie's earthly body gave up the ghost on 27th of November 2007. Thankfully, we do not require our physical body for eternity, and that meant that he was able to leave that oxygen bottle behind. 3 things. These are the focus for the Bernie Banton Foundation, as it tends to be for most support organisations. Support represents yesterday and the effects of past exposure. Awareness represents today in the steps we collectively take to avoid future exposures. And advocacy represents tomorrow with all that involves. Faith through effective lobbying for prioritised remediation work for removal of asbestos-containing materials will make our communities safer, and that the mining and trade in asbestos globally will cease, and better treatments and ultimately a cure for mesothelioma and asbestos-caused lung cancer will be found. Awareness equals hope. Educating in the hope of preventing asbestos exposure and eradicating asbestos-related diseases in the future. And support, for me, that's a key element. And faith, hope and love, and the greatest of these is love. Passing the baton. Bernie he fought the good fight and he finished his race. His spirit lives on through his legacy, supported through the Bernie Banton Foundation, just as Alan Reinstein's legacy lives on through Linda, Emily, Doug, and the wonderful supporters associated with, let's see if I can get it right, ADAO. Some of you may have heard last night, I've always been pronouncing it ADAO, but ADAO. Some of you may have heard about the TV miniseries, that Devil's Dust, which featured Bernie and also Matt Peacock, who some of you would have heard speak here last year. I can recommend to you Matt's brilliant book if you haven't read it. It really does tell the story of the company James Hardie, one of many around the world I know, but it's a fascinating read. And there is also proposed a cinema movie in the next 2 to 3 years, so keep a lookout for that. It will tell the personal life of Bernie. The TV miniseries tended to be a dramatisation. It was brilliant. It didn't detract from the whole message and had a great awareness message. There's a close common bond between ADAO and the Bernie Banton Foundation, and likewise it has been truly wonderful to meet those here who share this bond from other countries as well. Both Linda and we are keen to develop strong ties between the USA and Australia. Teamwork is also about helping each other and reaching out to other nations, such as our dear friends in the Meso Warriors. I wish to acknowledge my team, great bunch of Aussies they are, Rod Smith, John Carter, Jeff Farey, all of whom are directors of the Bernie Banton Foundation and are here today. We also have other directors back home, Piers Grove and Professor Bruce Robinson, AM. And we're very blessed to have the wealth of knowledge and experience in these people to do support, awareness and advocacy. And I'd also like to make special mention of Lou Williams, my kindred spirit, who many of you know through Facebook and have had opportunity to meet on this trip. And we're so thankful that Lou was able to come with us. She's an amazing lady and you're going to hear from her shortly. She's a wonderful advocate. She's our voluntary asbestos information awareness and support officer. And she's just an absolute gem. Here's Lou with another dear lady who has lost her battle. Some of you would have Facebook, I'm sure, with Julie Bastian, and just a wonderful, beautiful spirit. And that photo was taken on the 14th of February 2011. Sadly, Julie lost her battle in September 2011, and it was three years and 1 month after diagnosis. And in fact, she'd been underdiagnosed some 2 years earlier than that. Julie is the late partner of Rod Smith, who cared tirelessly for Julie as her health steadily deteriorated. In order to fulfil the ever-increasing challenges of caring for Julie's needs, Rod withdrew from his role of facilitator and coordinator of a large ARD support group. that was based in Melbourne, Victoria, in Australia. And following Julie's death, Rod accepted the role of operations manager in a voluntary capacity for the Bernie Banton Foundation, and he's now also a director of the foundation. This photo has Julie, Rod and myself. It was at a commemoration service in Melbourne. In what year? Anyway, would have been 2010, yes. And Julie became a special friend. I lived in Sydney. Rod and Julie were based down in Melbourne, and it was a real privilege on a couple of occasions to be able to go down and actually meet Julie rather than just on Skype and through email. It was a real joy. Now, after Julie passed away, Rod and I, with this common bond that we have, we were firm friends, and we were married. And that is my boy all grown up. He's now 23, so that little squirt you saw on the hammock. And we were married on the 13th of April last year, so we're coming up to 12 months. And at the wedding too, it was lovely to have Julie's 3 sons and their partners there, and it was just a magical day. This is one of our directors, John Carter, and Rod at the Adelaide Lung Cancer Conference last year, and we had an exhibition booth to just raise awareness. Here is our dear friend Lou. She came across to Adelaide to the conference as well, and that was one of the dinner symposiums. And girls just want to have fun, and we have a lot of fun, don't we, Lou? There is the stunning scenery of the Mornington Peninsula where we live. That's where we were married, and I'd like to extend a welcome to any of you who are able to come down under. You're more than welcome to get in touch with us and come and stay. Suits us, we'll be back home by then, so. And just finally, this is, I included this shot because it symbolises our dedication to reflecting on the past, to always keeping alive Julie's and Bernie's memory, and it inspires us today and every day for current and future accomplishments. And as I said, it's been an absolute delight being here. All the Aussie team have really had a thrilling time, and you've been so wonderfully hospitable. I just want to say thank you to ADAO and everyone involved. It's been an amazing time here, and your hospitality has just been fantastic. So thank you very much.